Good afternoon, gardeners, and welcome to the Determined Indeterminate Gardening channel. I hope that you dig gardening as much as I do. Today is the 26th of June, and we have had a very odd summer here in Maryland, as I'm sure you've had all through the country. And here in Maryland, it's been unseasonably cool, unseasonably dry, and also very overcast, which is not typical for us. We tend to have about 75 to 85 degree days with bright sun. We get regular storms and then they go away. So to have several weeks of dry overcast is very unusual for us in this area. The significance when you have unseasonable weather over a long period of time when you're a gardener is the effect that it has on the plants that you normally grow in your area. For me, I am primarily a tomato grower. I have several varieties of tomatoes over here in these grow bags. I have tried some other things this year, like I'm growing onions for the first time and carrots. I have grown carrots in the past, but not to the extent that I'm growing them this year. And then I normally grow potatoes, and I've got these over here in these grow bags over here. And in this new, somebody gifted me these beautiful raised beds. And so because of that, I've been trying some other things, like over here, I have my sugar snap peas. They are, we got some aphids going on over here, but that's okay. I'm hoping that the ladybugs will come in here and take care of them. They've already had one harvest, and I'm getting a secondary harvest off of these, so that's why they look a little ratty. Here we have our cilantro, which has already gone to bolt, and I'm hoping that I'm going to get some coriander. If you see these beautiful little seeds that are forming here, that should make some beautiful coriander later on. Nice little flowers that again are bringing the tiny pollinators. If you ever get a chance to really look at your garden when you have small flowers like this, you get to see all the little tiny pollinators that you may not even realize exist. It's really a fascinating thing to experience when you're new to the garden, new to the gardening world, and you've never seen anything like a tiny bee that would pollinate these flowers. Here we have these little tiny green bees, and they are a bee variety. I did look them up several years ago, and it was just the coolest experience to be able to find a new species of insects that was new to me, and to learn that those were actually in the bee family, and they love these tiny little flowers. They also go after my parsley that I have over there that I have going to seed. I leave my parsley out as much as I can because we have swallowtail butterflies that come and lay their eggs in there. Got celery. This is a new crop for me. I've never grown celery before. Wanted to give that a shot. And then what I've shown in, I believe I've talked about in some of my other videos, is the mosquito repellent plants that I have been incorporating into my garden. And this is one of these pots. So in here we have the Mexican mint, these beautiful little yellow flowers, lemongrass, and then I have 6 different types of basil in here. And one of those mosquito repellent varieties is the lemon basil and also the lime basil, which are beautiful plants in their own right, beautiful flavor, and are excellent insect repellers. Now that we come over to the second half of my garden, this is where I've seen some real effects of the changing weather pattern that I discussed earlier. Again, most of these plants are ones that have either been growing for a while, like my sage, and I have oregano, and I have chocolate mint that have been in my garden for several years. And then I have the plants that I do annually, like my tomatillo that I have right there. But as you come around, I'll start to show you some of the differences. This is my sweet potato slips, and if you notice, there's not a whole lot going on there. Typically by this time of year, I am able to start transplanting slips. There's enough going on that I can take them off the plant and put them in their permanent home for the rest of the season. I purposefully put them in this container because of the cooler temperatures. I was hoping that putting it in the metal pot in this location would keep the soil warm enough that I would see some better progress. But even that did not do as much as I had hoped. Had to do extra fertilizer because of a couple of heavy rainstorms that just leached the soil nutrients right out, because we're talking a full day of nothing but heavy rain. And the following couple of days, I started noticing a decline in the look of all of my plants. So I had to go back and fertilize when normally at that time of the year, I wouldn't have to fertilize, even in containers. I've also noticed things like my basils. These are all different types of basils. And if you'll notice, you see these little marks? This is sunburn. Because we've had such overcast days and consecutive days of overcast, when the sun came out full like it is right now, it actually sunburned these leaves. And let's see here. Yep, this one here. You see how that sun's just peeking through, and you can see the white blotches right there on these leaves. That is sunburn, sun scald. Some people call it different things. This is a pepper plant. It is this is a banana pepper. This is very small for this time of year. I actually started these indoors. They were not germinating indoors, even with a heat mat, because the temperatures in my home were actually even too cold to germinate the peppers this year, which again, a little bit unusual, but it's a lot cooler temperatures overall in my basement. And again, and this is unusual because I used a heat mat this year and I didn't before. And by now, this pepper plant would look more like that pepper plant. That is one of my poblanos. That one did particularly well, and it is the size that all my peppers should be. If you look at the other poblanos, they're much smaller. That one is kind of, it's getting closer. That there is the early jalapenos. They did amazing, but that's one thing I love about the early jalapenos. Because they are an earlier variety, they are much more tolerant of those cooler temperatures. Again, sweet banana peppers, very small for this time of year here in Maryland. Now, keep in mind, I am in Southern Maryland. I'm in Zone 7B. So my experience with my plants, of course, is going to be different than your experience with your plants in your zone in your particular conditions. But the point of this is that my conditions this year are very different than what I am usually experiencing. And understanding how that can affect your growth season is very important as a gardener, especially if you're relying on your harvest to supplement your food throughout the year. And that is what my family does. So having this lower plant size can prevent me from getting a good harvest later on in the season. I will tell you something about having a cooler season that has really worked to my advantage, and that it has thrown off the life cycle of a lot of insects that would cause me to not be able to grow plants that I'm currently growing very well. This is a delicata squash. This was really a leap of faith because growing cucurbits in my area is very difficult because we have squash vine borers. We have striped cucumber beetles that cause bacterial wilt and viral wilt. And we also have the spotted cucumber beetles and squash bugs. So as I'm sure you could just hear from that list, that's a lot to deal with in this area. We also have powdery mildew. So anything that could attack these poor plants, we have here in droves. Look at these things. They are absolutely gorgeous. I have never had anything of this variety of plant, any kind of squash plant at all, or gourd, ever look this beautiful. I gave up on pumpkins years ago because I was just so frustrated at all of the work I was having to put in to get very little yield. And this is just absolutely gorgeous. I have done something different this year, and that is from another YouTuber. He was experimenting with using mothball water. And that's what I have in here. I have one jug that I've cut little slits in. I have 20 mothballs on the bottom, and I keep it filled about a third of the way with water, quarter to a third. And I leave that over here. And it's nice and hidden with the leaves. You don't even know it's there. I'm getting ready to plant cucumbers in a grow bag, and they're going to go over here. So I've gone ahead and made another one that's just out of an old lemon juice bottle. And that's got about 8 of the mothballs in it. And I'm hoping that I will have the same success and I'll be able to grow cucumbers this year. But again, this is a test. This is experimenting in your garden, finding out new ways, new ideas of gardening, trying them out, seeing if they work, see if they don't, see if you like them. And maybe you'll get great results. Maybe you'll just be a chalk up in the gardening journal saying, I'm not going to do that again. But going back to the change in weather, again, let's stick with the theme, is more sunburn. And I really wanted to show you guys this because if you're not familiar, if you haven't seen any pictures or never experienced it, it is good to be able to see what it looks like, because we get bombarded with pests, diseases, all kinds of things on our plants. And I don't know about you, but I'll go on the Google and the Plant Snap and all these other things, and I can never quite find the picture of what I'm looking for. But maybe this video might be able to help some of you recognize something odd in your garden that you've never experienced before. These are ground cherries. These were gifted to me. I'm so grateful because I love them, but I've never been able to grow them. But you can see, yeah, I've got some very unusual whitening, splotchy patterns here. Definitely this one was so much that it actually burned right through the leaf. You can almost see my finger out through the other side. It's so thin. And it's good to be aware that these things are possible. And like I said, we had almost 2 weeks of haze and overcast. Some of that was actually from the smoke coming down from Canada's wildfires this year. Some of it was from just different weather patterns and just, like I said, a lot of marine layer, clouding, all kinds of different things. But it has significantly affected my garden in ways that I would not have anticipated. Parsley. This is what the sun scald looks on the parsley. You see these are more tiny white splotches. Let me see if I can get a clearer shot here. But yeah, these little white patches. This plant did dry out, so it does have some browning around the edges. And that's what happens for me for flat Italian parsley that has dried out. It just, there's definitely some signs of plant stress on that poor thing. It was actually a rescue from a neighbor. She handed it to me and said, can you make this thing live again? And when she saw what I did with it, she had me keep it. I'm so glad that you guys took some time out of your day to join the Determined Indeterminate Gardening channel and learn a little bit about how weather affects your plants and how seasonal changes in weather can affect your garden in the most interesting ways. We hope that you are doing wonderful and that you're enjoying your summer and that you're enjoying the gardening experience as much as I am. Remember to dig gardening just like I do.